Hello everyone, this is part 4 on how to make a shoot 'em up game in Scratch. If you haven't seen parts 1, 2, or 3 yet, check them out, links are in the description below. Anyways, in this tutorial, I will be adding player lives and enemy lives, a number counter for the endgame cache, and some special effects for the player and enemy planes. Anyways, let's get started with the enemy plane lives. So I'm here in the enemy plane sprite, and I sort of want each enemy plane to have 3 lives. So let's create a variable, and I'll call this enemy plane lives, and select for the sprite only. And this is really important. So select this for the sprite only, and this is so that each clone of the enemy plane created can have its own amount of lives. So yeah, if we set the variable for all sprites, then whenever the enemy plane lives decreases by 1, then all of the lives of the planes on the screen will be decreased by 1, and we don't want that. So that's why we selected for this sprite only. So anyways, when the enemy plane is created, we want it to have 3 lives. So let's drag a set enemy plane lives to 3. And let's see, we can have a if touching bullets, then we can change our enemy plane lives by -1. So it takes 1 hit point off of their lives. And after it touches a bullet, we need to detect when the enemy plane lives is lesser or equal to 0. So let's go to control, grab an if statement, and let's put this after the if touching bullets if statement. And let's go to operators, grab an less than operator. Then let's go to data, grab our enemy plane lives variable, and we need to check if the enemy plane lives is less than 1. Then, if the enemy plane lives is less than 1, then we want it to delete the clone. So yeah, it's pretty simple. And I'm actually going to put this if statement inside of the if touching bullets if statement. So let's do that. And I can take out the delete this clone in the if touching bullets. And I'll drag this weight 0.01 seconds in front, or actually I will put it before the change enemy plane lives by -1. And let's actually move the change score by 10 into the if enemy plane lives is less than 1. So the score only increases by 10 once we destroy an enemy plane. So yeah, let's test it out. So the planes should take 3 hits to destroy. So 1, 2, 3, and they're destroyed. Cool. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Alright, so that's 3 hits. Cool. Now I sort of want the enemy planes to have this little brightness effect once it gets hit, so you actually know when you hit the enemy planes. So to do that, let's go to looks. Let's grab a set color effect to, and let's change that to set brightness effect to. And I'll just say maybe 30 to start off with. And let's put this in the if touching bullets. So let's set the brightness effect to 30. Then let's wait 0.01 seconds. And then let's set the brightness effect back to 0. So this makes the whole sprite a little bit brighter once it gets hit by the bullet. Now let's try it out. So once the bullet touches it, then it becomes a little bit brighter. Oops. Let me show you that again. Once it gets hit by a bullet, it gets a bit brighter. And yeah. Okay, I'll make this a bit more brighter. So maybe 40. And let's see. I sort of want the enemy planes to move slower. So maybe 2 steps. And I'll make the planes maybe, or actually, okay, I'll make the player plane shoot a bit faster, so 0.15 seconds when creating a clone of the bullet, and I'll make the bullets move a bit slower, so maybe move 12 steps. So yeah, now let's test it out. Once there's an enemy plane, there is the brightness effect. Alright. So the next thing I want to do is to add the player plane lives. So I want the player plane to have 3 lives, and it'll probably show on the top left corner. So let's create a variable. Let's name it player lives. Click OK. And when the flag is clicked in our player plane sprite, let's set player lives to 3. So the player will have 3 lives. So for the lives, I sort of want it to display like the amount of lives you have. So let's create a new sprite, and I'll call this player lives, I guess. And what I'll do is drag this player sprite costume onto the drawing area here, and I am going to have the planes represent the lives. So 3 planes equals 3 lives, 2 planes equals 2 lives, and 1 plane equals 1 life. So yeah, I'll have a plane here. This is going to be our 1 life costume. So let's rename this to 1, so we know that this is 1 life. Now let's duplicate this costume. Then let's duplicate this entire thing. Okay, I'm going to first group this, and then duplicate this. And this is going to be when the plane has 2 lives. Then duplicate this again. I'm going to copy this. And this is going to be when the plane has 3 lives. Alright, so we have 1, 2, and 3. And I am going to set the size to maybe 50%. Okay, maybe a bit bigger, so 75%. Okay, alright, I think that's okay. And I will position this over here on the top left, maybe right there. Alright, so that is the X position of -166 and Y position of 158. So let's grab a when flag clicked in our events and have it go there when the flag is clicked. And let's drag our set size to 75% under the when flag clicked. Alright, let's see. So let's grab a forever loop in our control and always switch costume to the amount of player lives that the player has. So let's grab a switch costume to, put it in our forever loop. Then let's go to data, grab our player lives variable, and always switch costume to player lives. And since our player lives can be 3, 2, or 1, then it'll always switch costume to 3, 2, or 1. So when the player lives has 3, switches costume to this one, because this is costume number 3, and so on. So yeah. Alright, so now we need to make the player be able to lose lives when touching the enemy bullet. So right now we have a stop all when touching the enemy bullet or enemy plane, but let's take that out and we can delete it for now. And when touching an enemy bullet or enemy plane, we want to change player lives by -1. And let's go to control and then grab maybe a wait 1 second, sort of like a buffer. And I think that should be fine. So let's test it out. Alright, there are 3 planes when starting out. Then once it touches a bullet, it becomes 2 lives, and then 1 life, and then 0. Alright, so the first problem I noticed is that once it loses a life, since it waits 1 second, it can't do anything else because the wait 1 second is in this forever loop where the plane does all of the other movement and stuff. So let's actually put this in a separate forever loop. So let's grab another when flag clicked, then a forever loop. Then let's put this in the other forever loop, so the wait 1 second does not interfere with the movement in this forever loop. And another thing is to also check if the lives is less than 1, because if it is, then we want the game to stop. So inside of our if touching enemy bullet or enemy planes, let's have a check, an if statement, to check if the player lives or is less than 1. So if player lives is less than 1. And then we can have the wait 1 second after the if statement. And then let's stop all. So go to control, grab a stop all, and that should be fine. Also, for the player lives, before I forget, we need to add a new costume to the sprite, and that's going to be a blank costume for when the player has 0 lives. So let's do that. Let's just create a costume, name this 0, and if you want, you can drag it to the front, and there we go. So let's test it out. Okay, for some reason the lives sprite is very big now. Okay, now it's better. Alright, let's test it out. So, 2 lives. Oops, okay, that did not really work. Okay, let's see what's wrong. Alright, 3 lives, 2 lives, then it switches to this costume. Okay. So I think what we need to do is to add 1 to our player lives when it switches costumes. So let's go to operators, grab a plus operator. Let's drag our player lives into the left side of it. Let's type in 1 to the right side. Now let's drag that back. So let's try it again. So 3 lives, 2 lives, 1 life. Alright, now it works. So the problem was, this switch costume to actually switches costume to the costume number, not the actual costume name. So once I added the 0 costume, the 1 life costume actually became costume number 2. So yeah, I know this block is sort of misleading. It's supposed to be switch costume number 2. So anyways, yeah. So that's why I had to do a +1, because, for example, if we had 3 lives, we had to switch costume to costume number 4. And then once you had 2 lives, switch costume to costume number 3, and so on. So yeah. Also, one more thing. I am going to make the lives sort of not go in the middle, but like 3 lives over here. I'm going to make it 2 lives on the left. So like that. Let's see. I think that just looks a bit better. So yeah. And then 1 life to the left again. Alright. That's fine. So let's test it out again. 3 lives, 2 lives, 1 life, and then 0. Stop. Okay, and it did not switch to the blank costume. Let's see why. Okay, I'm pretty sure it's because once the player lives reaches 0, it stops all, and it stops before this even has a chance to switch the costume. So let's add a quick buffer in there, so like a 0.01 seconds. So let's wait 0.01 seconds before stopping all. That way this can run, this can like guarantee to run, which switches costume to the blank costume before everything stops. So let's test it out. Okay, 2 lives, 1 life, 0, and the player lives disappears. Awesome. And now I don't really want the wait 1 seconds when touching the enemy bullet. Actually, I do want to keep it to make the player plane become invincible for a while. Sorry, invincible for a while when it gets hit by a bullet or enemy plane. So I actually want some flashing animation or something to make the person playing the game know that the player plane is invincible and not that it's some like bug or something. So let's go to looks, grab our set brightness effect, and let's grab a repeat loop in our control. Let's repeat like 6 times, and let's set brightness effect to maybe 35. Then let's wait 0.2 seconds, and let's set the brightness effect back to 0. And that should be good. So if it gets hit, then we want to replace this wait 1 second with this, and that should be fine. Oh yeah, we need to add another wait 0.2 seconds after the brightness effect is set back to 0. So here, and let's actually make it repeat 3 times. Alright, let's test it out. So once it get hit, then it has that little brightness effect. Alright, I'll make it a bit faster actually. So maybe 0.1 seconds. And I'll make it repeat maybe 10 times. Alright, let's see how that looks. Once it get hit, then it does that. Alright, I think that's fine. And then during that time, the plane is invincible. Cool. Alright, so I'm going to keep it like that. And I think that's pretty good. Also, as you see, sometimes when I click the green flag, the sprite of the player lives does not set size to 75, which is sort of annoying. So I might, to fix that, I think I can just add a wait to 0.01 seconds before it sets size to 75. So let's test it out. And I think it should work every time now. Alright. And it actually might make the size a bit smaller. I think it takes up too much of the screen. Maybe 70 or 65. Maybe 60. Okay, I think 65 works well. Then I'm going to move it to the left a tiny bit. So x negative 170. Let's see how that looks. Maybe negative 175. Negative 173. And that should be better. Alright. So let's see. Alright. Oh yeah, and one thing I just noticed is that the enemy bullet goes through the player plane. And we don't want that. So let's go to enemy bullet. And in our repeat until y position is less than negative 179, we want to add or touching the player plane. So touching mouse pointer, change that to player plane. Now let's put this into the or, drag this back. And now the bullet should stop when touching the player plane. Alright, the bullet disappears. Cool. And for some reason, when I click the green flag, the player plane shoots some bullets, as you see over there. So to fix that, in our bullet sprite, we can go to control, grab a wait until block, and let's go to operators, grab a not. Let's go to sensing, grab a mouse down. So let's put that after the when flag clicked. So when the flag is clicked, since we clicked on the flag to start the game, right? It first checks until after that click is done, and then it runs the code where it shoots the bullets. So now, as you can see, there's no more random bullets when you click the flag. Alright, so that works pretty well. Now we can just try our game. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so the next thing I want to do is to add a in-game cache counter. And I actually don't want the score variable anymore. So what I'm going to do is to create a new sprite, and let's call it cache. Alright. And for the cache sprite, we want to make 10 costumes and each costume has the digit 0 through 9. So I'm going to very quickly do that right now. So yeah. Alright, I am done. And just as a reminder to have the 0 actually be the last costume of the sprite. So not the first one. So it's 1 through 9 and then 0. Alright, and then I'm going to name these from 1 through 0. Or 1 through 9 and then 0. So name them with the appropriate image of the costume. So yeah. Alright, so now that we are done, we can start our scripts. So let's grab a when flag clicked, and let's hide the original sprite. And what we're going to do is to create, let's say, about maybe 5 clones of it. So let's go to control, grab a repeat 5, and let's create clone of myself. So it creates 5 copies of itself. And let's go to data, let's create a new variable. Let's call it maybe digits, and then let's set for the sprite only. Then click OK. And let's first set the digits to 0, and then after creating a clone of itself, then let's change digits by 1. Well, let's actually do that before. So yeah, now each clone that is created has a different number of the digits variable. So yeah, essentially this just gives, we just number our clones essentially. So each clone has a different number. Alright, so now let's grab it when it starts a clone. We want it to first show, of course. And let's grab a forever loop in our control. Let's drag it under the show. And we want it to first, let's see, go to around here. So under the planes. That's around this position. And we want to make sure that each digit shows up in a different position. So what we do is to multiply the x value by a certain number, depending on their digits variable. Since each number or each clone has a different digits variable, that means their x positions would be different if we include the digits variable being multiplied in their x position. So let's have a digits multiplied by, let's say, maybe 12. And let's actually subtract that. So digits multiplied by 12 minus, around here, let's just say 200. And let's drag that into our x position. And let's test it first. So we have our digits. We have 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. Yeah, so right now they don't work, and that's expected because we don't have anything so far. So all we did was have our 5 clones over here, and they have different positions. So now what we want to do is to only have some of them show, right? Because we want these numbers to show our current score, which is 0. So to do that, let's grab a if-else statement in the control, drag it inside the forever loop, and let's go to operators and then grab a lesser than operator. Then let's check if the length of, go to data, the score variable is less than the digits variable. Then we want it to hide. So pretty much, let's say our score is 10, okay? And we have 5 clones, each which has digits of 1 through 5. So only 2 of them are going to show, because only 2 of them has the digits variable, which is less than the length of, or actually greater than length of score. Oh yeah, sorry. It's actually length of score, not letter 1 of score. So length of score. So yeah. Now else. So pretty much if the digits has a lesser length of score, then we want it to show, and then switch costume to the, go to operators, grab a letter, then go to data, grab a score of the digit. Or sorry, I mean letter digits of the score. So in this case, we pretty much just show the digits and switch costume to the correct number. So since we have 5 clones, we have our 1th place, 10th place, 100th place, 1000th place, and 10,000th place. And this just pretty much, like, if the 1st place clone is running this, then if the score has a 1st place, like 10, 100, or like 7, then it switches costume to the 1st place of the score. So it would switch costume to costume 7 if the score is like 17 or 7 or something like that. So yeah, and the same thing for like the 10th place and the 100th place and so on. So yeah, this should work now. So as you can see, we have 0, which is the current score. Now let's say we get 10 score. Now we show 10, and then 20, and then 30, and so on. So now we know that this works. We can hide the scores variable, and let's reposition the cache sprite. So let's say negative 240, maybe 230, 235, 232. Alright, I think that looks pretty well. Okay, the player lives size thing still does not work. I'll see what's wrong with it later. But anyways, let's work with the cache. So, okay, I think that looks alright. Okay, I think that's fine. So let's try getting some score. And I think the numbers are too close together, so I'll change it to maybe digits times 15. Okay, that looks fine. Let's see. Alright, I think that's good. Okay. Alright. Yeah. I might move it to the right a bit still. I mean left a bit, so negative 235. Or oops, 235. Okay, that's fine. And since we're going to be having money, actually, I'm going to first rename this variable. I'm going to rename this to money. Or, yeah, money. Or actually cash. And there we go. And since we have cash, I'm going to add the $sign. And that's going to be in the player live sprite. Since the $sign's not going to be like moving or anything, I'm going to have it in here. Alright, so I'm done adding the $sign to all the sprites, including the 0 lives costume. So yeah. Now let's see. Okay, the numbers are on top of the $sign. So I'm going to move it to the right a bit, maybe to 20. Okay, and I'll move it up a bit, so maybe 120, 118, 117.5. Okay, and then I'll move it to the right a tiny bit more, so 218. Maybe to the left, actually, 222. Alright, I think that looks fine. And now, once we get some score, we can see it. We get 10, then we get 20, and so on. I think the 1 is a bit too low. It's a bit off, so. Alright, that should be better. Now let's test it out. And it works. Cool. So now we have our number counter for the cache. Okay. I'm going to do some more play testing. As you can see, the player got hit, and then did the flashing animation. And yeah, cool. Anyways, that's it for this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, then give it a thumbs up, and subscribe too if you haven't already. Be sure to stay tuned for part 5 of the series, and check out some of my other game tutorials. Anyways, that's it for this tutorial. See ya!